All the civilizations and societies of the past met with only destruction in the end, and so will those of today and ages yet to come. The conditioned nature of things inspires disenchantment. In the past, there have been countless worlds undergoing the stages of formation, existence, destruction, and emptiness. Yet, they have all disappeared without a trace. The same applies to the present and future phenomena. Reflecting on our time and space will help us recognize this truth. The history we can remember or record spans about 5,000 years. Beyond that, there is little human memory, though archaeologists can uncover some traces. The river of history is endless. Think about how many worlds and lives have appeared in the past. We remain trapped in this cyclic existence. Those in the present and future are all conditioned and momentary, arising and ceasing from moment to moment. This truth can ignite our renunciation. As stated in the treatise on the great perfection of wisdom, all grass, trees, and earth will be destroyed. Mount Sumeru will collapse, and oceans will dry up. The abodes of heavenly beings will be burned to ashes. At that point, what is permanent in the world? At the end of the Kalpa, immense destruction will occur. All grass, trees, and earth will be burnt without a trace. The solid Mount Sumeru will collapse, and the 4 vast oceans will dry up. Even the celestial palaces in the desire realm heaven will be burnt to ashes, and the fire will burn all the way up to the first dhyana heaven. In this conditioned world, is there anything that can last forever? The fierce wind of impermanence constantly blows on the conditioned aggregates. Our defiled bodies can only last for no more than 100 years. They are fragile like a toxic sore or foam. No matter how solid or enduring they appear, they will eventually cease. Therefore, all conditioned phenomena are not solid, stable, or graspable. Not to mention defiled, inanimate things and sentient beings. Even the Buddhas, who possess infinite qualities such as the 10 powers and 4 fearlessnesses, will manifest their entry into nirvana when the conditions for their manifestation cease. Because the Buddha stayed with sentient beings, he appeared just like them. He lived as long as they did and ate as they did. So, don't think that the Buddha only lived for 80 years. That's not the case. In the Agama Sutta, there is a dialogue. One day, Ananda went to visit the Buddha. After paying homage and kissing the Buddha's feet, he asked, "Why is your body so frail, not as it used to be?" The Buddha replied, "As you can see, my body is no longer as it was before. It is afflicted by illness and pressured by death. It is aging, and I am about to turn 80 years old." Upon hearing this, Ananda shed sad tears. He couldn't help but say, "What a suffering of aging." The Buddha manifested in this way. It is said that Ananda lived for 200 to 300 years before entering nirvana. Moreover, he used the fire samadhi to cremate himself. While it may appear that Ananda's spiritual attainments surpass the Buddha's, this is not the case. Out of great compassion, the Buddha manifested everything as an example for future generations. If he were to manifest living for 10,000 years, his followers would not engage in dharma practice. Therefore, Buddhas adapt to the circumstances of the time. When the average human lifespan reaches 80,000 years, Maitreya, who will come at that time, will also live for that long. The Buddha earnestly taught monks, "Nothing in the world can be relied on. Let go of worldly attachments and strive for nirvana, the eternal peace beyond birth, aging, illness, death, and separation. Please always be mindful of impermanence." This is because nothing has inherent existence. How can we rely on something without an intrinsic nature? For instance, can we rely on a cloud? The Buddha's teachings are excellent. By meditating on impermanence, we will realize that nothing in the world can be relied on. Everything is impermanent and illusory. How can we depend on illusions? Yet, we often do, forming attachments to illusions. Worldly people call it responsibility. For example, they say, "This man is responsible and reliable. Marry him." In reality, what worldly people call a sense of responsibility is a strong attachment to family. He dedicates his life to the family but also clings to it. Since he has contributed so much, he expects something in return. So, if you don't obey him, he will get angry. As the head of the family, he believes that his sacrifices entitle him to ownership. He sees the family, wife, and children as his. The more he gives, the more he wants to possess. Death is inevitable for all living beings. It arrives suddenly, without warning. Everything in the threefold world is changing from one moment to the next. We should recognize that all ordinary beings are bound to die. Moreover, death comes suddenly without a fixed time. The collection on impermanent states, even the Buddha, the Pratika Buddhas, and the Shravakas have to abandon their bodies, not to mention ordinary beings. Where can one escape death? There is no such place. Not in the sky, not in the ocean, and not in the mountains can one avoid death. All beings who have been born or will be born will eventually abandon their bodies and depart to other realms. The mind, attached to the notion of a self, carries the karma it has created and moves on to the next life. First, reflect on the inevitability of death from three perspectives. This is a meditation on the impermanence of life. 1. Meditate that death will inevitably come and nothing can prevent it. The bodies of ordinary beings arise from karma and afflictions. Hence, they are conditioned and momentary. What we call a lifetime is actually a continuous series of moments. When this continuum stops, one dies. Have you witnessed someone taking their last breath? When the final breath is exhaled and never inhaled again. No power, wealth, medicine, or magic can prevent death. 2. Meditate that our limited lifespan does not increase but only decreases. Today, the average human lifespan on Earth is less than 70 years. Based on this data, nearly 300,000 people die every day, equivalent to the population of a city. 3. Meditate on the certainty of death and the limited time available for Dharma practice in this life. In the early stages of life, we lack maturity and intelligence. In the later stages, we are old and frail. Much of our life is wasted. Moreover, we spend time on sleep, eating, illness, and other activities, leaving little time for Dharma practice. Recognizing this, we must seize our time to practice the Dharma. Meditate on a specific person. Reflect that this person will eventually pass away. For the defiled aggregates born of karma and afflictions are like flowers briefly blooming in a meadow. No one can prevent them from withering. The time of death is uncertain. In our Saha world, numerous factors can cause death. The circumstances that lead to death are countless, while the conditions that keep us alive are few. Some individuals die shortly after birth due to freezing, starvation, or illness. Others may face untimely death due to plagues, wars, floods, earthquakes, or accidents. When a plague or war strikes, entire villages or even regions can be wiped out. The body we cling to is as fragile as a bubble. Even a little flame stuck in the throat can lead to death. Many celebrities passed away suddenly, making people feel sad, such as the singer Yao Na. However, as a cancer patient, she might have a sense of premonition about her impending death. Bruce Lee also died unexpectedly. Earlier that day, he was discussing film projects. At around 6 or 7 in the evening, he said he was tired and went to take a nap. Unfortunately, he slept until 8 and never woke up. When his wife tried to wake him up, he didn't respond. Upon examination, they found that he had already passed away. These are cases of sudden deaths of celebrities, but numerous ordinary people also face untimely deaths every day. For example, a bus driver passed away while driving and couldn't even apply the brakes in time. Nowadays, many people die unexpectedly. Everything in the threefold world is changing from one moment to the next. Observe that all phenomena in the three realms, whether animate or inanimate, are constantly changing and never stay for even a moment. In the Maharatnakuta Sutra, the Buddha tells Venerable Kashyapa, the mind is like a river, constantly flowing and never staying. The mind is like a lamp arising from causes and conditions. The mind is like lightning, not dwelling for even an instant. Upon introspection, we can recognize that thoughts come and go like a flowing river. The moment we try to look at a thought, it has already vanished without a trace. When another thought arises, it too emerges and passes away in a moment. Thoughts are conditioned phenomena. Everything is created by the mind. All phenomena in the three realms are constantly changing. Days and nights alternate, weather fluctuates, and seasons change. It's easier to observe impermanence in the current world. In summary, to the best of your ability, consider all aspects of impermanence that characterize conditioned things and reflect on each one clearly. Strive to bring to mind the various aspects of the gross and subtle impermanence of compounded phenomena and reflect on them one by one. Recognize how the aggregates of those we desire are transient as lightning, fleeting like clouds in the sky. Until the momentum of this idea fades, focus your attention on nothing else. Through observation, we shall recognize that the aggregates of those we cling to are as fleeting as lightning, clouds, and bubbles. Until this mindfulness fades, continuously meditate on this topic. We should cultivate the insight of impermanence, recognizing that the time of our death is uncertain. Once we die, there is no turning back. When the intermediate state arises, we will be carried away by our karma. Upon rebirth, all our memories will be reset. Very few people can recall their past lives. Even if they can remember, it's usually limited to mundane experiences, and they barely remember the dharma. How many people can recall the teachings they practiced in their past lives? Even if you have attained spiritual accomplishments in this life, you are unlikely to remember them in the next life. You may find yourself familiar with some teachings and able to learn them quickly. Death can strike quickly. Some people are still daydreaming and making long-term plans. We should dedicate ourselves to practicing the Dharma. Before discussing the generation of bodhicitta, it's essential to be somewhat confident about attaining liberation from samsara. If you haven't aroused renunciation and only have a shallow knowledge of non-self without actual practice, can you generate bodhicitta? Your bodhicitta would be insincere. In reality, you still cling to fame and gain. On the surface, you may appear to have developed bodhicitta, but deep inside, you haven't let go of worldly concerns. You seek recognition from others pursuing fame. Is this your mentality? This indicates that you haven't released your attachment to fame. While you may have let go of wealth, power, and so on to some extent, you still crave recognition, admiration, and praise from others. You feel great when receiving these things. This shows that you haven't cultivated renunciation well. Those with a qualified renunciation are never alone at any time. Regardless of the circumstances, they strive for spiritual liberation. When there is no opportunity to help sentient beings, they practice the path to liberation in the mountains or prisons. When they have the chance to benefit sentient beings, they guide them according to the situation. This is the way of bodhisattvas. Before reaching that level, don't imitate great bodhisattvas. They have already transcended the cycle of birth and death, so they can courageously benefit beings. They can serve as an ox in one household and as a horse in another. Do you have such abilities? You don't even know where you will be reborn in your next life, so how can you imitate great bodhisattvas? Great bodhisattvas can manifest as kings or beggars, always at ease, whether ordained or lay. Can you do that? You cannot, because you are still bound by afflictions. First, focus on liberating yourself from the cycle of birth and death. Don't think too much. We shall help sentient beings. But in this degenerate age, cultivating yourself well is already an altruistic activity because your example can inspire others. In this degenerate age, many great masters benefit sentient beings by presenting themselves like actors on a stage. They set up a stage and demonstrate how they practice the dharma. Once they have achieved spiritual success, they share teachings based on the circumstances and then pass away. Even the Buddha followed this way. He first played his role. After attaining Buddhahood, he guided those who had karmic connections with him. At least, you should make sure you can attain liberation from samsara and have realized non-self. Whether in dreams or daily life, you can let go of everything, including fame and gain. You shall see the emptiness of everything. At that time, nothing in the world can stir you. What does this mean? It means that when no ordinary being can affect you, your renunciation is qualified. If ordinary beings can easily provoke your anger, is your renunciation genuine? This indicates that your mind remains attached to the secular world. Thus, when others irritate you, your karmic obstacles emerge and you become angry. It shows your renunciation is not qualified. If you have cultivated a genuine renunciation, no matter what others say, your mind won't ripple. For example, when a bird chirps, do you get stirred? So, why are you affected when someone says something? This shows that your mind is still entangled in the mundane world. When you can let go of any worldly concern at any time, your renunciation is qualified. Moreover, no matter what other practitioners say, you remain unwavering and think, I aim to liberate myself from the cycle of birth and death, so I don't care about what you say. Do you know what it means to be free from the cycle of birth and death? It means transcending samsara. Before reaching this level of renunciation, you may become entangled in the secular world during your so-called altruistic activities. You might have developed a little renunciation, but end up retreating to the ocean of suffering. While helping others, you join them, forgetting bodhicitta. As an ordinary being burdened with karmic obstacles, you claim to benefit sentient beings. Please devote yourself to Dharma practice. Engage in analytical meditation, eliminate self-grasping, and develop concentration. Cultivate discipline, concentration, and wisdom earnestly. Help sentient beings according to circumstances and accumulate merits. At the very least, ensure your admission to a pure land. Can you guarantee it? This is the minimum requirement. No matter what any worldly being says or does, those who seek liberation from samsara won't get disturbed. They think, no matter what you say or do, I shall strive to liberate myself from the cycle of birth and death. Since there is no I, whatever you say won't affect me. However, you haven't reached this spiritual level. Even though you have learned many teachings, you haven't put them into practice and still indulge in delusions. That's why many masters in the past didn't impart Dharma teachings. As I remember, a master didn't expound the dharma after attaining enlightenment. No matter what others asked, whether about no self in person or phenomena, he simply responded, "Do not indulge in delusions." Regardless of the question, his reply was always the same: "Do not indulge in delusions." When others requested him to teach the Dharma, he replied, "Do not indulge in delusions." When others offered him food, his response was the same: "Do not indulge in delusions." His teaching was simple. This phrase could address any situation. We are always lost in delusion, so what the Master said is correct. Do not indulge in delusions. Some people say, "I have attained enlightenment. Please verify it for me." My response to them is, do not indulge in delusions. Who has attained enlightenment? What you see may not be the true nature, but hallucinations